Imagine a single company pouring $42 billion into Bitcoin. That's more than the GDP of some countries like Nepal, Iceland, or Honduras. MicroStrategy is currently holding over 330,000 Bitcoin. And they're doubling down on their Bitcoin investments like never before. In this video, I'm going to break down their audacious 21-21 plan, and I'm going to share what this means for you as an investor, but also how they might reshape the crypto space forever. So stay tuned and watch this video until the end, and make sure to like, subscribe, and let's dive in. All right, MicroStrategy's massive $42 billion Bitcoin play. Not that long ago, Michael Saylor tweeted this tweet. He said, I think saylortracker.com, which is a website where you can track all of MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor's Bitcoin purchases. And all of the green dots that you see here on the screen, those are times where MicroStrategy purchased Bitcoin. And basically with this tweet, he was pointing at the fact that MicroStrategy just did another big Bitcoin purchase. Now, these big Bitcoin purchases are not always known. Big companies need to report their financial numbers every quarter. And oftentimes that's when they expose to the public what they're doing. But MicroStrategy is very open and public about their purchases. So oftentimes before they even publish those numbers, they would publish press releases and other articles and content out there describing their recent investments. They want to become one of the leading Bitcoin companies. So they want to set an example and show other companies and even countries why it's important to keep DCAing regardless of the price. So let's continue. Michael Saylor was actually pointing at the following. So MicroStrategy just bought another 51,780 Bitcoin for around $4.6 billion. MicroStrategy now owns 331,200 Bitcoin worth $30 billion. That's massive, okay? So, and they already announced that they're going to raise even more capital to buy more Bitcoin. So this was last week, and this week again, so there's always a slight delay in these videos that I'm recording. There's already a new update out there that MicroStrategy is raising even more money to buy up Bitcoin. So they keep on buying more and more Bitcoin. Now, this is all part of a bigger plan, which we're going to uncover, and we're going to also discuss why and how and all of the mechanics behind the scenes. So Forbes wrote this article, and they said MicroStrategy announces a $42 billion Bitcoin investment plan. Again, to comprehend this amount of money, that's almost the same as the economic output of smaller countries like Iceland, Honduras, Nepal. That's the equivalent amount of money that they're putting into Bitcoin in the next few years. So the way that this 21-21 plan, which is how MicroStrategy calls this big Bitcoin plan, how it structures is as following. In the next few years, 2025, 2026, 2027, they're planning to invest, or they're planning to buy $13 billion worth of Bitcoin in 2025, $14 billion worth of Bitcoin in 2026, $18 billion worth of Bitcoin in 2027. And the way that they're going to do it is in two different ways. Number one, they're going to sell shares. We call that equity in the company. So they're going to sell shares on the open market. And in 2025, they're planning to raise $5 billion worth of equity. In 2026, $27 billion. In 2027, $9 billion. Now, in addition to selling shares on the stock exchange, they're also going to raise money on the debt market. They're going to raise money on the debt market. So they're going to issue convertible bonds, and more about that later. So they're going to be raising equivalent amounts of money that they're doing in equity with bonds. So $5 billion worth of bonds in 2025, $7 billion in 2026, $9 billion in 2027. And I wouldn't be surprised if every subsequent year they will keep on increasing the amount of debt and equity financing to raise Bitcoin. So you see this increasing trend over here from 5 to 7 to 9 billion. Now, what are these bonds? Those are not just average bonds. So A bond is normally like issuing a loan. There are certain conditions to the loan. This is the initial amount of money that they're borrowing. This is the interest. This is when you're going to repay the interest, and how much of the loan you're going to be repaying and over what period. So that's a typical bond. But a convertible bond is something different, and that's what MicroStrategy is using. So a convertible bond is a fixed income interest-paying debt security that can be converted into a stock, into common stock, when certain conditions are achieved. So for example, when the stock price achieves a certain amount of valuation, then people can convert their bonds into stocks. So what would be the incentive for someone to do this? Because basically, when you are listening to what Michael Saylor is doing, he is borrowing money at practically 0% interest. So he's getting a loan and he almost has to pay 0% interest, and there's zero collateral. So if he doesn't pay his debt obligations, then there isn't much recourse that the debt holders can do. So why would someone be willing to take so much risk by borrowing someone this money at 0% or practically 0% interest? Well, that's because if certain conditions are met, a certain stock value, then they can convert it into stocks. So this could mean that they could buy MicroStrategy stocks at a very big discount, and because they're willing to take this risk. So basically the discount that they're willing to take is proportional to the risk that they're taking. That's always the case. So the payoff is often proportional to the risk that you're taking. So they're raising a lot of money through these financial instruments called convertible bonds. Now, here's another Bloomberg article that's saying MicroStrategy's $26 billion Bitcoin pile is much larger than many large publicly traded companies hold in cash. So IBM and Nike, for example, those are very common names. Only about a dozen S&P 500 members hold more financial assets than MicroStrategy. And imagine they have just been doing this for only 4 years. So they're now entering their 5th year, and they kept on DCAing consistently. And that shows the power of DCAing. And if you look at public companies that own Bitcoin, MicroStrategy is leading the charts. So MicroStrategy now holds 331,000 Bitcoin. Then we have Marathon Holdings, which is a large publicly traded mining company. We have Riot, which is another big miner. Tesla holds Bitcoin because there was a period where people could buy their Tesla cars with Bitcoin. But they discontinued that until certain requirements were met, which are now met, by the way. So Elon Musk wanted Bitcoin miners to run on more than 50% green energy. And I think we're now on 56% green energy. So there could be a possibility that Tesla could start accepting Bitcoin again, which would be amazing. Hut8, another big mining company. Coinbase, of course, a very well-known exchange. CleanSpark, another mining company. Block, I think this is Jack Dorsey's company, the founder of Twitter and Stripe. Galaxy Digital, a large digital asset manager, and there's a few more. But with orders of magnitude, MicroStrategy is leading the chart. So at least a 10x multiple above its the second place, which is Marathon Digital Holdings, which right now is following a MicroStrategy playbook. They're raising money on the public stock and debt market to buy Bitcoin. So the average investor doesn't have a clue how much buying pressure there is on the market right now. These large companies like MicroStrategy, Marathon, they're all raising so much money to scoop up all of the Bitcoin on the public market, but a lot of it is happening behind the scenes through what we call OTC deals, over-the-counter deals, where you go directly to an entity that owns a lot of Bitcoin and you write them a check and they send you Bitcoin directly to your wallet. So that's how the big guys buy Bitcoin, because if you put a large amount of money, a few billion into Bitcoin on the open market, then you're going to start to pump the price. And they have been doing that throughout the bear market, but now you see that there's very few companies and entities that still have enough Bitcoin supply to sell over-the-counter deals. So these large entities are forced to buy on the open market, and now they're pumping up the price. So I want to keep highlighting the crazy success of MicroStrategy, which has far outperformed the S&P 500. So MicroStrategy's shares rose with 1,540% in the past few years, while the S&P 500 rose with only 111%. So here you see the chart. The orange line is MicroStrategy, which increased with 1,544%. The purple line is the S&P 500, which increased with 111%, which is still nice. It's amazing, 111%. But MicroStrategy outperformed that again with a multiple of more than 10 in a period of just 4 years. So that's the power of DCAing and buying up all of the Bitcoin through the strategy that they have. So based on all of the past success that they had in the past few years, they want to take it to the next level with their 21-21 plan. So NVIDIA is a company that has been performing really well. It's actually part of something that we call the Magnificent Seven, the top 7 stocks, which are basically the biggest chunk of the S&P 500 and the S&P 500 growth. So year to date, NVIDIA has gained over... The gap... So if we look at the period from August 2021 until right now, MicroStrategy is up around 1,800% compared to NVIDIA's 1,150%. So NVIDIA is seen as the golden child of the AI era, yet MicroStrategy is outperforming NVIDIA. So this is how insanely well MicroStrategy is performing. It's outperforming the golden child of the AI boom. Now, recently, Michael Saylor announced that he wants to be... There's a bigger plan. So first we saw that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy started to buy into Bitcoin in 2021 in the previous bull market cycle. And people were shocked about this publicly traded company that was slowly accumulating more and more Bitcoin and wanted to become the poster child for the Bitcoin treasury asset for both companies and countries. Then they came out with the fact that they wanted to become the leading Bitcoin bank. So this is something that Michael Saylor announced not that long ago. Their long-term game plan by buying up so much Bitcoin is to become the world's leading Bitcoin bank. So they own 331,000 Bitcoin and they want to lend out Bitcoin. They want to accept Bitcoin as collateral, for example, mortgages, or they want to create other innovative Bitcoin-related financial instruments. So they want to become the biggest Bitcoin bank. So all of the Bitcoin that they're accumulating right now is part of that bigger long-term plan. And that's something really interesting because some of the best leaders in the world, like Elon Musk, for example, Elon Musk has a very big, bold vision, but it's a long-term vision. They're not just focused on the short term. And I think that's something that's really important when you look at really great leaders of companies, because oftentimes when you're investing in a company, you're investing in the leader, in the persona that's behind the steering wheel. And I think when you analyze some of the podcast interviews that Michael Saylor is doing right now, he's such a very intelligent person, very well educated, has done his research very well. And he has the ability to look a few decades into the future. And that's what I really admire from him. So I'm definitely a Michael Saylor fan. All right, so that was the MicroStrategy 21-21 plan. They're going to buy $42 billion worth of Bitcoin, almost the GDP of some smaller countries in the world. That's a massive amount of Bitcoin that will be flowing into the market. And at this point, I'm doubting, we've seen the 4-year Bitcoin cycles for the past 3-4 cycles where we see massive bull markets and then we see a typical 80-90% correction. At this point, I'm wondering if we're even going to see the 80-90% correction, because there are new players on the market that are buying up all the dips and they're borrowing and raising billions to buy up Bitcoin. So I wonder if the market drops with 50%, trust me, Michael Saylor is going to buy a ton of Bitcoin. And I do believe that some of this might counteract the cycles that we have seen before, the large 70, 80, 90% cycle. So this might actually become the moment where we're going to break free from the 4-year cycle, and that Bitcoin is going to turn into more of an Amazon stock, an Apple stock, where instead of the 4 years, it will just gradually start to move up over time. And that's what happens when you invite institutional players, because they don't care about the cycles. They just keep on buying every single day, regardless of the price. So I'm really curious about your thoughts on that matter. Do you believe that we are still going to see a 4-year cycle in the next bull market cycle, like a typical one with really high bull market peaks and then a 70, 80, 90% correction? Or do you think that this asset is slowly maturing as more large institutional investors are entering the space and buying up the dips? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. All right, if you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, take care, enjoy the gains this bull market, and never forget, taking profits will never make you any poorer. All right, take care.